Okay, so here we are with our Acer R756T, okay, R756T Chromebook review and teardown, okay. So looking over this Chromebook, it's actually fairly nice. It's got a textured feel on the top. On the left-hand side, we have the power button, headphone jack. We have a micro SD slot, USB-A and USB-C. Right-hand side, we have our volume buttons there, slightly raised so you can feel it. USB-A and a USB-C. Okay, this one does flip all the way around into a tablet. Sorry, again, I'm still doing this one-handed. It does flip all the way around like in a tablet. It has a camera up top. Notice my Burger King drink, my tea. I gotta have that. A shutter. Has a camera on the keyboard itself, so a world-facing camera when it's in tablet mode. And other than that, it looks pretty nice. If I flip it over here on the bottom, you're going to notice a couple things. Right away, we notice these two screws right here. Okay, this is so we can push out the keyboard without actually taking off the bottom case. Okay, which is nice. The keyboard comes off easily. And then we have keyboard push points here, here, and here. But if you look real close, you'll also notice that there is water drainage there too. So if we dump liquid into the computer, there's 3 spots for that liquid to come out. Now, some of you probably already know this, but these drainage ports, although they're very, very nice, the big problem you have is if they pour water in here, it comes right out. If they pour like soda in here, then the keys get sticky anyways, and you're still looking at keyboard replacement, but it is nice and easy. So let's do this first. Let's go ahead and take out these 2 screws, press on these 3 spots, and let's go ahead and remove the keyboard to get started. Okay, so we'll just take our screwdriver here, pop this out, pop the next one out. Okay, so I'm going to open this computer real quick. So we have this slightly open. Let's power off the screen. Okay, and then we're just going to press firmly on these push points. So let's push here. There we go. You see it's starting to pop up. So our keyboard popped up. I can continue pushing from the other side, but just for the sake of me being one-handed here, I'm just going to go right here and just pop this keyboard with my spudger. Okay, there it is. So you got those push points there. That will help you get the keyboards out. Okay, I've got it out here. You notice right here on the side, if I flip this keyboard this way, you notice right here on the side we have a piece of tape. So we'll just take this tape off. There we go. Okay, and then we'll just flip this right here. Pull this out. There we go. One removable keyboard. Okay, so just pop that back in there, and there's you a nice, easy keyboard replacement. Okay, I did say this was a push point. This is not a push point. You can push here, 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 and here. All right, super easy. Don't need to take the bottom case off. But now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to take the bottom case off. So I'm going to put these screws over here next to the keyboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and loosen these screws. And to make this video a little shorter, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, so I went ahead and took the screws out. These screws do come fully out of the case. Took them out all the way around. There's a lot of them, but it's not difficult. So the next thing I'm going to do is work my way around the casing here. So I noticed that there's a notch right here. You can see where the bottom half is out over this headphone port and this USB-A. So I'm just going to go ahead and work around the bottom case. Okay, Let's see, right here. And starting back here by this port where it's already open makes it super easy. And then we'll just work around our way around. You see it's just popping up right there. So I'm gonna keep working around. All right, so I worked my way around here just by gently sliding that around. This is probably the easiest bottom case I've had to remove so far as getting the spudger in there and actually working around the case. Super easy. I'm just gonna lift up this panel, take that off, and let's take a look and see what we got here. All right, so inside the case, we have an IO board here on the left, which looks like it has a USB-A, a USB-C, and our volume buttons on it, which is nice. Unfortunately, our headphone jack and the main USB-C is on our motherboard. So what does that mean? That means if we get to a problem where they break a headphone jack or that power USB-C, which is very, very common, we're replacing this entire motherboard. Okay, we have our LCD cable here with our digitizer. We have our real world camera, world facing camera up here, 2 screws. It looks like there's actually a 3rd screw way down in here. Okay, 2 little cables that connect to the motherboard there. Wi-Fi cables come in through the left hinge. Left hinge looks pretty solid. It's got 2 screws and a long bar here. That looks like they actually built that pretty well. Same with the right hinge. Our speakers run across the front. The cable goes down underneath the battery, around, plugs in here. Okay. Our battery sits on top. Now, here's what I noticed about this battery right away. There are no screws in this battery. What that means is if for some reason you have the bottom case off and you go to do anything, okay, whoop, it falls right out. Okay. Is that a problem? Maybe not for some people. For me, a lot of times when I'm testing screens and things like that, I like to leave the bottom case off just so that I don't have to, take it back off again later if I mess something up or I forget to plug something in. So that is kind of annoying. They could have at least put 1 screw in it, if nothing else, just to help hold it in place. But it's not a deal breaker. Just have to remember that it will fall out. Okay, now our battery cable is under a couple pieces of tape here. So I've got this piece of tape, and then I've got another piece of tape. Okay, well, just move the camera here. So I've got another piece of tape here that I'm going to pull off. All right, so I pulled off that piece of tape. You see it's just a push-in plug, nothing special. You just pull this out, and this will unplug the battery. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right, the battery's unplugged. And we've got another piece of tape here, holding the battery in and not doing a very good job of it. Okay. I'd argue that those pieces of tape are kind of useless. I would have liked to see a screw on this battery as opposed to a piece of tape. 1, 2 screws at most would have been fine for me, but whatever. Okay, so we have our trackpad underneath. So here's our trackpad cable, touchpad, synaptics. That's nice. We have 3 screws, again, underneath a piece of tape. Some more tape here, wraps down, and then it looks like it just hinges out through the front. So we just take those 3 screws out, unplug that cable, and then that will hinge out. So overall, it looks pretty easy to repair. If I have to ding this, it's going to be there's no screws to hold the battery in, which means it can fall on you while you're trying to do work. And I'd have to ding it because, like a lot of manufacturers, they put that headphone jack and the main power USB-C on the motherboard. Again, costly repair. To take our motherboard out, looks like we have a series of screws. We have the right hinge has to come out here to lift this up Then we're gonna have this screw here holding this metal bracket down. And then we've got 3 screws here, screw there, screw and screw. Okay, and then this is going to hinge up and out. How do I know that? Because we've got our notches cut off here. So we're gonna hinge this up and out. And that's pretty much it for this. Nothing seems overly complex. I mean, you can see right here, here's those push points, drainage points on the keyboard. So it allows the liquid to come out. I would like to see them design that a little bit better. They should allow for more drainage, but you see right here under the keyboard, they left the tape off, and that tape, see where the key is? It's going to filter out through that key, right through those holes, okay? Again, it does allow liquid to come out. That's nice. At the same time, if you get liquid inside of here, again, if it's pop or something, it's going to gum that up. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily, I said it was going to mess you up, but that doesn't mean you can't fix these. You can always pop these keys out and clean it out with some cleaner and then put the key back on. I've done that in the past. You notice if you look really close, okay, there are tabs right here to the side that help hold the keys in. Now, those little tabs should help prevent the keys from coming out. The kids just rip them out anyways, even with those tabs. But you can get a little flathead underneath those keys, pop those off, and clean those out. Most of you probably know how to do that. If you don't, comment, tell me that you'd like to see me do that, and I'll show you how to replace the key. All these keys and the clips underneath are fully replaceable. The only thing you have to watch out for is that little rubber nub that's under there. If that's ripped off, you're buying a new keyboard. But pop spill technically can be cleaned. All right, so let's put this back together and let's take a look at the screen. One thing I should point out before I finish putting this back together is the keyboard screws are noticeably smaller than the actual case screws, so it's kind of hard to get those messed up. They are different sizes. Okay, so the 2 keyboard screws are smaller than the original case screws. Okay, so here we are back together again. Okay, I wanted to tell you, if you see scuffing and stuff on this, which there's really not much, but fingerprints and things like that, these just went through our demo. I allowed the students and teachers to vote on computers. So that would be why that is. They were handled by a whole lot of people. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove this screen. Based off the look of the screen, I'm going to run my spudger around this edge here, and the screen should come straight off. So let's see. I'll show you how I get started with this, and then after that, I'll pause the video to save time, and then we'll just go from there. So I'm going to run this spudger. Looks like I might be able to get a good start here. Actually, let me do something else first. Let me grab a brand new spudger. My desk is a mess. It's a brand new desk, and I still haven't had time to actually get things organized. So let's see. Boy, this one is not wanting to. There we go. So I started top left corner. Now you see it's popping off real nice and easy. Okay, so I'm going to work around the edge. Okay, so I've worked all the way around the screen. What can I say about the screen? Not the easiest one I've taken off. Usually it slides a lot easier. This one took a little bit more force, especially around this bottom left-hand side. The spudger just didn't want to get in here. Now, once you got it in there, it popped fairly easy, but not the easiest screen, but again, not difficult. So let's lay the screen up and kind of lay it flat, see what we're working with. Okay, so again, fairly standard here. This is very tight. You see, I'm letting the screen go. I've got this gap. I can't lay the cable all the way down, but that's okay. So if I zoom in here, I've got my digitizer cable here, and I've got my LCD cable here with a piece of tape. So I just take this tape off, rock this hinge. You can see that little metal hinge there. Just pop that up, pop that off. The camera, zoom back out, the camera runs along here and again is attached to the front bezel here, the digitizer and the screen. This looks to be all one unit, which is pretty standard in most of these. So the whole screen is the digitizer and everything. Back case is merely just a back case. It has hinges, and I'm going to call that a fairly weak, flimsy hinge. Okay, why do I say that? It's not a big, heavy metal like I'm used to seeing. It's just thin aluminum, super thin. And then it's attached here by these two metal rivets and 3 screws to the case. It looks like we might have another screw up here under our Wi-Fi cable, maybe not. But anyways, to replace this hinge, we have to remove the Wi-Fi, the copper and the Wi-Fi here, in order to take off the cable. So it runs along here and up, and the other antenna runs clear down around our case, up and here. So again, both sides, if that hinge breaks, you're looking at taking that whole Wi-Fi cable off and re-putting it back down. My experience with Wi-Fi cables, they do go back down, but there's little 2-sided tape underneath to hold them in place. Sometimes they don't always want to stick the best. Not the end of the world, but I'll be interested to see this in a drop test, because I have a sneaky suspicion this model breaks hinges up here on the back, and I imagine it's more often than I would think. If you have this model and you've noticed that these break a lot, hey, feel free to leave a comment. But I haven't drop tested this yet. That happens this coming Thursday. But man, I'm just taking a wild guess, and that's my wild guess based off hinges I see that as a common break with students. Okay, nothing special here. Again, just take these 2 cables off, unplug this up here. I do notice that the cable plugs in the underside of this camera. So if I need to unplug this cable, I've probably got to go ahead and remove this camera in order to do it. Okay, it's underneath. Other than that, I'd give this one about a 7 on repairability as far as the screen and stuff goes. I don't mind the bottom half of the unit. Again, my biggest problem is I wish companies would learn to put the headphone jack and the main power jack on an I/O board. Okay, so put all of those on the left side and then put the motherboard on the right side. Just flip your stuff around. That would help a lot, because the main power that people plug in, usually on the left-hand side, is what breaks, and the headphone jacks break left and right. So do everybody a favor and switch that. So I'll reassemble this and give you my final thoughts. All right, so here we are back, fully assembled. Everything's cleaned up. I did have to plug in the power because I unplugged the battery, so it went into deep sleep. That's normal. Okay, so final thoughts on this device. I can actually see why Acer is so popular among schools. Again, I don't use them here, or I haven't yet. However, after tearing this thing apart and actually run benchmarks on it, it performs very well. So schools that actually have this device, most of them tell me they're happy with it. I can see why. I really can. Repairability wise, it's pretty easy to repair. Now, that doesn't mean it's not without problems. This model here, again, has that daggone ports stuck on the wrong side. It's on the motherboard, so that's costly to repair. And I could see, and again, I'm just basing this off pure observation, I could see where you probably have a lot of hinge problems, a lot of hinge breaks. This looks like it's been redesigned. And the reason I say that is because it does have metal brackets in there, little metal rivets holding that hinge on, which tells me that that wasn't always the case. So this thing's probably had quite a few hinge problems over the years. They're definitely getting better, but I would still make that hinge sturdier. As far as the LCD goes, putting the camera on the plug-in on the camera on the back side and running your hinges underneath that little copper sticker for the Wi-Fi. It's kind of annoying. It's not a deal breaker. It's not that big of a deal, but come on, repairability wise, you can do better than that. Flip that port upside down so you can get that camera, that cable unplugged easier. Move those Wi-Fi around, or heck, put that sticker underneath the actual hinge. That wouldn't bother me at all because you hardly ever remove those. Okay, other than that, I'm fairly happy with this computer. I mean, it's nice. Okay, it benchmarks well. I went ahead and benchmarked all these computers, as I stated in previous videos, and it benchmarks well. Not top of the list. It's somewhere, in the middle, but it's actually a decent machine. So I'm going to destroy these next Thursday. We're going to see exactly what it takes to break these. I know they all say they've been military drop test students. Look at that military drop test and say, ha, I raise you one. Okay, so they'll destroy things anyways. But overall, I feel pretty confident that if you're buying this machine, you'll be happy with it. Again, not the fastest machine out there. If I'm pushing these machines 7, 8, 10 years, I might consider a little bit higher end model, depending on budget, but it's a good, well-made machine that I would have no problems with, and it's definitely on my consideration list. So on to the next video.